this can't be something that the West doesn't know about. Why are they ignoring what's happening now?
I don't think they're ignoring it, Crispin. I really don't accept that reading. I know that's the reading that the West would like to present. Um, but when Biden says, I think you should allow more aid and so on, in the morning he signs, 10,000 more bombs to Israel. And in the afternoon, he says you should allow more food in. I mean, this is the West, all right. Now, just let's think about what Israel is for the West. When Herzl wrote about it 125 years ago, the father of Zionism, as he's called, he already presented his then dream as a bulwark of the West in the Middle East. So this came to be. This really was realized, and Israel became the bulwark of the West and considered itself and is considered by the West as that bulwark. So what happens is regimes change in the Middle East, but their relationship to the West changes. Think about Egypt, think about Yemen, and all of them might come into the orbit of the West or might leave it. Israel is always there. It's the reliable, reliable partner against the rest in the Middle East. And this has been even before 1948, its main function. May I mention that during the 30s, the end of the 1936 to 39, most of the British army was in Palestine fighting a Palestinian uprising for 3 years. And it was fighting it on behalf of Zionism and with using Zionist forces as well. And the whole of the British army couldn't defeat them very easily for 3 years. And we start thinking about that when we see that the Israeli army, definitely one of the most terrifying armies anywhere, is unable to defeat Hamas for 6 months. So we have seen this before. But what we are forgetting is the West is a militarized colonial outfit. Look at the number of wars started by the US, the great supporter of Israel. I mean, the Americans don't resolve things hardly ever through diplomacy. They could have resolved the Ukraine situation through diplomacy, but instead they have created it by the coup and then by the way that they have engineered the war. They have not negotiated in Vietnam. They started a war. They've not negotiated anywhere else. When they had a problem in Chile, because they thought it's a problem to have a communist regime in Chile, they basically just killed everyone around. And they've done it so many, we have no time to go through the whole list. So when you are discussing the West as some kind of normative outfit that should have realized that Israel is not just armed to the teeth, but is actually a danger to every society in the Middle East and beyond. Well, this is done on behalf of the West, not against it. Israel is not doing anything that the Americans haven't done before or will not do again. Britain is also a great country for wars, as we know. When the West needed to be angry with someone, for example, in 9/11, they didn't attack Saudi Arabia, where these people supposedly came from, but they attacked Iraq. What did Iraq have to do with any of that? But it was easy. It was on the agenda to attack Iraq for a long time. And this was not the first time Iraq was attacked, but the second. But, it was a nice and easy one to win and to destroy.
It's a bit like attacking Iraq was saying we have to get rid of Al Qaeda. It was a bit like saying we have to get rid of Hamas and attacking Gaza. There's the same
Exactly.
philosophy, the same principle. So in a way, what you're saying is that it's when we point the finger at Israel, people in the West, and how terrible it is, we shouldn't be looking at the finger pointed back at us. But from what I've read, Israel has a lot of arms and is selling arms to us. So how does that work? I mean, wouldn't it be better if we didn't buy arms from Israel? What's your view on that?
Well, I think it's a bad thing that Israel exists. So what it does is it's not just a militaristic society, but it lives from militarism. In other words, it lives from conflict. This is what actually makes Israel tick financially, not just socially. So Israel is selling between 140 and 150 states. In other words, most of the members of the UN, there are 200 or 199 this year. It's selling most of them its armaments. Let's just take highlights of the last few years. India, one of the biggest armies in the world, one of the biggest, the second biggest country on the planet in terms of population, is getting most of its arms from Israel. Now, India is one of the biggest countries. Israel is one of the smallest countries, and yet it is producing the arms for a giant like India. You have to ask yourself what is going on here. Now, let's go back to a bit closer to home. Azerbaijan has defeated Armenia in 2022 by taking over the region called Nagorno-Karabakh. This was defended by Armenia for a long, long time. And without the drones and other missiles that Israel sold Azerbaijan, they couldn't have won that war. The Armenian army had a lot of armament from Russia. So they had lots of tanks. And Israel produced and sold Azerbaijan a suicide drone, a large drone with a large explosive that attacks tanks and finishes them off. And hundreds of tanks were actually destroyed in a very short time, all by this Israeli drone and other missiles. So Israel has made it possible for a whole number of countries to win wars, mainly, against their own citizens. This is what Israel is very good at, is working with tyrants and dictators against their own populations. Israel is selling to most large cities on earth systems of spying on their citizens through public cameras. Basically, the software hijacks public cameras and uses them without the knowledge of their owners against people who demonstrate, against all kind of things. Now, this is not new. Of course, we know about the production by Israel of software that takes over our telephones. I know, because my telephone was hijacked. So by Pegasus, yeah. So this is not a new thing. Israel is very good at using illegal means to fight legal populations without them knowing about it, without them being able to act against it. So this is what it is selling to cities, not just armies, but cities everywhere. It's selling about, we don't know the figures because they keep them secret, but a minimum of $12 billion a year and a maximum of twice that was achieved, I think, in 2022. So Israel thought that this is the best year they ever had. And how wrong were they? Because, of course, that is the year that the war in Ukraine started. And that is the year that most European countries started buying arms from Israel. For example, Germany is buying most of its missiles from Israel, not from the United States, because the American missiles don't work. Now, the UK is selling to Israel about $500 million worth of arms every year. It's probably buying from Israel more than that. The figure again is kept secret. So this is not a lot.
So stopping buying would be as effective as stopping selling.
Stopping buying will be even more effective, because, Israel is selling so much arms. If India stopped buying from Israel, that would be a hit. It will hit the economy. Israel is now acting in such a way that it's not very surprising if the Palestinians will become anti-Semitic, which they haven't, thankfully. But a lot of others are becoming anti-Semitic. And I'm worried about it as someone whose family was wiped out by anti-Semitism, because Israel is spreading, is exporting anti-Semitism around the world by its totally incredible disregard for humanity and for any international law system. Anyone who lives in London knows that the problem of racism in London is not really against Jews, but against Muslims. And the government is actually Islamophobic, like most of European governments, like France, like Germany. And I think there's no talk about Islamophobia, and nobody is talking about the working definition of Islamophobia day and night and so on. But, my parents were killed by anti-Semitism, and the families were killed by anti-Semitism, sure. They didn't need a working definition of anti-Semitism. It was clear what is anti-Semitic. I don't think there is that type of anti-Semitism in Britain, the opposite. But of course, if this goes on, anti-Semitism will grow, because who are the anti-Semites? People that didn't go to university, that didn't study about racism, that don't know about cultural studies, and that basically are not really knowledgeable about politics. And if somebody says to them, the Jews control the world, as the 19th century was full of theorists like this, then some of them believe that, and they start acting against any Jew that they see. Now, I am not a visible Jew. So, I don't go with a kippah or with, side locks and so on. I'm going to be safe. But Jews who are visibly Jewish, like the Haredi Jews, will be in great danger. Now, the irony is that a lot of them, really good people that they are, and very Jewish that they are totally against what Israel is doing in their name. So the people who will probably suffer first from anti-Semitism are those who are opposing Israel. Now, I want to come to your point about the Jewish state and Judaism. You said that their identity is made up of two elements, of being militaristic and being Jewish. There is nothing Jewish about the Jewish state. Nothing Jewish about it. I'm, not a religious Jew. I grew up in a religious background, and I became an atheist and a Marxist. But the point is this: Judaism for 2,000 years was not militarized, not because it chose not to. It didn't have the chance to be militaristic. But actually, Jews were very happy with this. They developed a culture that was anti-militaristic, that was internationalist, that was peaceful. They were Pacific, yeah, a Pacific group. They developed, you know, a kind of culture that was cosmopolitan in the 19th and 20th century, before others saw the point of cosmopolitanism. I'm not trying to romanticize Jewish past, but for 2,000 years, when Jews were living in societies that were not range against them, like in Al-Andalus for 800 years under the Muslim rulers. They were living in North Africa, in the Middle East, in Iraq. 2,500 years, a peaceful Jewish community lived in an Arab Muslim country without any problems until Zionism came over. So we're talking about Judaism as a very Pacific, a very long history of pacifism in the Arab East, but also in the Arab West and in Europe. Israel is not a Jewish state because it is against Jewish history, against Jewish tradition. This is what I was discussing when I was talking about in the book and elsewhere about Zionism opposition to the Jews who survived the Holocaust. They really suffered. Like my parents were not allowed to speak Yiddish, to read Yiddish, to see cinema and theater in Yiddish. For example, it was illegal to produce theater in Yiddish for a period. There was a special tax on paper that was printed in Yiddish. That tax didn't exist on any other language in Israel, but it existed on Yiddish. It was a cultural war on the culture of the diaspora. So if the diaspora lasted 2,000 years, Zionism in its 100 years and a bit history has fought everything Jewish. Everything Jewish. So there is nothing Jewish about occupation, about stealing the land, about apartheid, about genocide. There is nothing, not a single Jewish tradition that is backing this illegality, this immorality. And we need to say this loud and clear to Jews who support Israel. Shame on you. Shame on you that you have decided to support a militaristic society which is illegal and immoral and anti-Jewish. And you have abandoned Jewishness, and your new God is the IDF. This is exactly what has happened